All right, so today we're going to talk about you being wildly blessed. How many of you can think of a time in your life where you worked really hard to try to get a blessing from something? Right? How many of you have ever thought that you actually were smarter than God and that you could figure out how life was supposed to work better than God? Because, God's getting old, and you shouldn't have to work that hard, and so it's like, okay, so I'll just tell God what I want, I want my life to work, and that's how it should work in the best possible way. Well, what if God wants to bless you in a way that would blow your mind? What if God wants to give to you in a way that's so radically good that we resist it over and over and over again? And what if these 9 teaching points that Jesus gave us in the Beatitudes were really an invitation to surrender to a spiritual downloading of potential? How many of you have ever downloaded a new program or something for your phone or your computer or a movie or whatever, right? And the idea of downloading something, or especially an operating system, is a pretty common event, right? We're pretty comfortable with the idea that we can access something that has a higher program, a higher way, that we can access it, that we can actually download it into our system, and that our system, the mechanics of our system don't change at all, but the functionality of our system changes greatly. True? Right? So, you can get a phone, the same phone you've always had, and you put a new operating system, and ideally it's supposed to work better, right? If the system, it's supposed to work better, right? So what if you have been pre-wired to be radically blessed? And what if the common operating system on the planet today doesn't allow us to function at the optimum level? And what if a teacher came along and said, if you try these 9 states of being, that they're going to help your system function at a level that's radically greater than you're used to? And the problem is, I'm going to have to use words to talk about this new operating system. And you're going to want to put these words into your old context. So you're going to hear the words I say, and they're going to be passed down for generations, and you're going to hear them the way you understand these words, but that's really not the way I want you to hear these words. I want you to hear these words directly into your soul. Because if you hear these words with the ears of your soul, they will awake something in you that you don't even know you have yet. They will awake a potential in you that you're not even aware is there. And your mind will want to argue what these words mean, and I just want you to hear them and let them sink in and see what they awaken in you, to see if you don't function better with you 2.0 or 3.0, whatever operating system you're still working on, right? So let me read from the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, Matthew 5. Now when he saw the crowds, he went up to the mountainside. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say things against you that cause evil about you. Rejoice and be glad, because great is the reward in heaven. For the same way they persecuted the prophets that were before you. So I want to begin with the last line. The last line, it says, blessed are you because you are being persecuted even like the prophets that have come before you. So in the last line, how high of an opinion does Jesus have about you? Pretty high, right? If he's putting you in the same camp as all the prophets that have come before you, he has a very high opinion of humanity. That he believes that you're the holy ones, the messengers of God, the ones that have been called to save the world, to transform the world, to be messengers of all the good that God is. So I want you to begin this understanding by clearly how high he sees humanity. How high he sees all of us. He's not seen us as broken little pieces. Do you hear that? Like whatever you were taught about yourself, he's not seeing you as a broken little piece. He's not seeing you profoundly messed up. He's putting you on the same level of every prophet of old. That you are that important to God. Okay, do you see that? Okay, so let's begin. We're using as our text Emmett Fox's Sermon on the Mount, and copies are in the bookstore. The Bible is really a textbook of metaphysics, a manual for the growth of the soul. And it looks at all the questions from the point of view, is it possible to emphasize a point too much? For the reason it takes the broadest view on every subject, it sees all things in their relationship to the human soul and uses many common terms in a far wider sense. Okay, what's the first one? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, how many of you come to church so that you can be anything but poor in spirit? Right? So we look at this idea of being poor in spirit, and the first thing that Jesus does is he kind of blows our mind a little bit. Like, how many of you ever heard in Scripture where it says the first will be last and the last will be first, right? And it's like, could somebody please just speak English? Right? But the problem is, they weren't. Right? It was translated at least 3 languages before it got to English, right? So, poor in spirit, what does that mean? And why, of being poor in spirit, would I inherit anything? Because isn't the definition of being poor, and especially in the context of Jesus' time, is you didn't get anything. Like everything was passed down from generation upon generation. So being poor of spirit, you were going to get a goose egg. Like, you're out. Sorry, good luck, God bless you. Right? So what does it mean to you to be poor in spirit? Anybody? I'd like to suggest today that it means surrender. And the first requirement of being radically fully blessed is that we surrender. And I'd like you to look at your own life right now and just see the places where you're in resistance. You have an area in your life, maybe like a situation or an experience or a family member or a job situation where if you told yourself the truth, you could see that you're in resistance. Now, why would we ever be in resistance if God is in charge of our life? Right? You see the problem? If God's really in charge of your life, why wouldn't you just surrender over and over again to everything in your life exactly the way it is, assuming that exactly the way it is exactly the way it's supposed to be, right? But for most of us, we have a mental concept that says, I could imagine this better. Right? Whatever it is, I could imagine it better. So I want to play my version of life. Because I really don't trust that if I surrender all the way, it's going to be better than I can imagine it. So what would happen tonight if you looked at everything in your life and you were willing to surrender to exactly the way that Spirit is moving through your life? 100%. Could you imagine that if you surrendered to every little moment, that the goodness of God is actually greater than you can conceive? But the choice is, over and over again, we'd have to let go of control. Okay? Blessed are those that surrender, right? For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then it goes on to say, blessed are those who mourn. How many of you have ever experienced grief? How many of you enjoy grief? How many of you think you successfully move through it? Okay, I'd like to suggest that I think grief is the number one misdiagnosed problem in our society today. I think the biggest issue that most people have is unresolved grief. I believe that the thing that makes our life smaller and smaller and smaller is grief. Because as a culture, we have no concept what to do with it, so we just keep walking, right? There's a book that I'd like to suggest that everybody I know I'm making read this book, and it's called The Grief Recovery Handbook. So if you think that maybe grief might be an issue in your life about anything, past relationships, death of a loved one, loss of a business, any situation that you have any level of disappointment about, I would invite you to get this book, because I think this book is fabulous. Because what this book allows people to do is actually come to completion. How many of you have heard that concept before, that we should come to completion about things? Right? It's a common concept, right? The problem is we don't know how to do it. Right? We think, well, maybe I'll have a conversation with the person and then I'll be complete. Right? Or what if the person's gone and I can't have a conversation with them at all? How do I get to completion? And what if there's a means to get to completion? And what if you could actually be complete? Because what does it say? Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. What if it's not a problem? What if it's not a problem that we feel things deeply? What if it's not a problem that we have heart connections to other people? Because what if there's a way that we can mourn and be complete so that we don't get stuck in situations or events out of our past and part of us stays there over and over again? Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Now here's the real kicker. Ready? Number 3. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. How many of you want to play the That's just not true. Anybody? Blessed are the meek, right? So what does that mean? What does it mean to say blessed are the meek? Anybody want to take a shot? Okay, so how many of you like to pay if you're going out to lunch with a friend, how many of you like to be the big spender and pay for it? I do. Because I think it's really powerful. Like when the check comes, like in my family, it's an all-out war to see who gets to pick up the check, right? I mean, we hide credit cards in our pockets and we put them in places so that we can strategically get them when the check comes so we can slap it down on the table first. Because the first one who slaps down the credit card first, what? They get to pay, right? They absolutely get to pay. So does it feel stronger? Just hear me here. Maybe you weren't raised in my family, but does it feel stronger to pay the bill for the party at the table, or does it feel stronger to let somebody pay for you? How many want to vote that it feels stronger to feel like the hero and pay the bill? Right? In the family in the world I grew up with, it was absolutely stronger to be the one that picked up the check. Because then everybody said, thank you, thank you, thank you, and you got to feel like a big spender. And it didn't matter if you didn't have the money, it was going to take you like 10 years to pay the bill. If you were the first one to slap down the credit card, you became the hero of the evening. Is that true? It's true, right? Lunch, dinner, you became the hero. No, let me get that. No, slap that card down, right? Now, in my family, if you were the one that was too slow, the sense of meekness was amazing, right? It's like, now I have to tell him a thank you, right? Now I have to actually appreciate him, right? What I want you to see is that many of us are having this relationship with God. When we think we're calling the shots, making everything happen, we feel powerful. We feel on top of the world. And if we have to actually practice asking God and receiving, please don't make me do that. Because then I have to actually practice being meek and asking for help and acknowledging that there was a power greater than me that was at work in this situation, and I just went along for the ride. But I want you to see that over and over and over again, we tend to be terrible at receiving. And in fact, I'd like to suggest that many times we will go without instead of asking God for help. We would sooner go without than ask anybody for help. And this is the kicker. Blessed are the meek, for they inherit the earth. It's like, really the worst possible attitude, the worst possible situation. We have to be meek, we have to be vulnerable, we have to ask for help, we have to practice receiving, we have to know that we didn't do it on our own. We have to move to a mental state that allows us to receive in a way that makes us feel the most vulnerable. Blessed are those that hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. So what is righteousness? Anybody want to take a stab at righteousness? I'd like you to break this word up with me, right-useness. Righteousness is as a spiritual being when you're using your spiritual power righteously, in its right-useness, right? So blessed are those who hunger and thirst to use their spiritual power righteously, rightly, appropriately, powerfully, because they will be satisfied. They will be blessed. So what if every day you prayed to use your spiritual power at the highest level? What if every day you pray to use your spiritual gift in the greatest possible way? What if every day you put God first and asked, how do I be the best version of me and use my skills and my attributes in the best possible way? Can you imagine that if you aligned all that you are every day with God, that you would be wildly, crazy blessed? That every day as you align your talents, your abilities, your thoughts, your desires righteously in putting God first, that everything's going to work. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. What's the teaching here? You know the teaching in here? So that whatever I give is what I... So if I offer mercy to others, guess what I get in return? If I offer compassion to others, guess what I get in return? If I offer love to others, guess what I get in return? That I can't really live a blessed life unless I'm also what? Giving blessings. That whatever I give out into the universe has to come back to me over and over and over again. And I only get to be blessed at the level that I'm willing to bless those around me as well. That as I give, so shall I receive, over and over again. So if I'm giving mercy... Now, what does mercy mean? Is mercy forgiveness? Is mercy not judging your neighbor when they fall down? Is mercy being kind when somebody's behavior doesn't warrant being kind? Mercy is really being an expression of God. It's really giving God to the people around you. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So what does it take to be pure in heart? Does it take to forgive? Does it take to be non-judgmental? And it also takes being free of anxiety. To really be pure of heart, we need to let go of the fears that if we surrender over and over and over again, we are set free. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are those who get insulted, belittled, put down, for God is with you right there. Can you imagine or remember a time in your life where you were put down? Maybe in the last week? Anybody get slighted in the last week, or somebody said something unkind to you, or nobody? Okay, great. All right. So here's what I want you to see today is we feel 100% justified in retaliating when somebody does something that we don't think is unkind. True? Because we feel like we're setting a boundary. Right? And then I have a right to set, I have a responsibility to set a boundary. I'm supposed to put them in their place. And what if right there you hold your own value as an amazing child of God? And no matter what they say to you, no matter what they do to you, you don't give away your own inner value. That you know that you're created in the image and likeness of God no matter what they say, no matter what they do. Now, is it ever appropriate to stand up for yourself? Of course. Right? But we probably don't need to do it quite as much and quite as ugly as we do it. We could actually do it in a way that would change the game radically. How many of you have ever had a bad day? Right? Right? Now, when you're having a bad day, do things ever come out of your mouth, even for people you just love and adore, in a way that's probably not appropriate for a child of God? Right? Now, if everybody in your life retaliated for what comes out of your mouth, have we moved forward or are we moving backwards? Backwards. So here's what I'm going to suggest, right? What if every time you give somebody a pass, you get a pass? What if every time you forgive, you're forgiven? What if every time you let go of something, a story, a wound, a problem, a challenge, one of yours is let go of? Can you see over and over again that as you give it, you get it back? Let me read the whole thing one more time. Now he saw the crowd, and he went up to the mountainside, and he sat down. And his disciples came to him, and he began to teach, saying, "Blessed are those who surrender, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then he said, "Blessed are those who mourn, who have been through difficulties and problems and challenges, for God will comfort you right there." And then he said, "Blessed are those who can be meek and receive the Spirit of God, for they will inherit all of the earth. And blessed are those who are spiritually hungry and thirsty to know the power of their soul, for they will be filled. And blessed are those who are merciful, who give, who forgive, who let go, for they will be shown the same. And blessed are those who have emptied their heart of all unforgiveness and judgments and anxiety, for they will see God. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called true sons of God. And blessed are those who will be persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when you get insulted or persecuted or falsely accused. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For the same way the prophets were persecuted, you will be blessed as well." Here's what I'm asking, and for those of you who bet I didn't do it, but here's what I'm asking tonight. I want you to see that there's a whole nother operating system. That if you take just one of these ideas and apply them to your life, that there's a significantly higher, greater level of God's good that could fill you up. And my prayer for all of us tonight is if there is anything that is blocking your soul from receiving the full grace and glory of God, you ask that it be removed. Because what I truly believe is, as a people, we are ready for the download of the next level of God in each one of us. And as we ask for it, it will happen. That your body and soul has been pre-wired for the next greatest level of goodness. And as you open to receive it, God will download the glory of God right into you. And I believe that's so. And as we practice it, everything in our soul that has been dormant begins to awaken. Because from the beginning of time, we were designed for the full expression of God. Will you pray with me? And I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God that is right here, right now. That God is ready to download into you the greatest spiritual understanding that you've ever known, the greatest spiritual power and wisdom and love. And as we surrender to it, as we forgive and release and let go, as we become more and more generous, more and more godlike, the full power of God becomes our new reality. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.